One of the key skills for a lecturer is the ability to stand in front of a class and to give a lecture for an hour, sometimes longer, and ideally to do it without notes. But how do you do that? It's an important skill to acquire, but it's not easy. It can take many years. Well, the first thing I would say is to really know your subject material. If the knowledge is just in your head, ready to go, you're in a much better position to deliver an effective lecture. But there's a skills dimension here as well. And so when I began lecturing, I used a script. I'd write the entire lecture out in a script, and then I would read it out. Now, it's not ideal from a presentation perspective, but you get through the material and you get it right. But I wrote the script in a specific way, not just like an essay in paragraphs, but I wrote it for spoken delivery. And what I mean by that is I wrote it thinking, how am I going to actually say this? What would be natural for me to say, and what would be a natural way to express that? And rather than structuring it in paragraphs, as I said, I'd write it out so that it is in breaths. So when I knew that I needed to take a breath, I would change line. And then the next breath, change line. And the point is that that's a much more natural structure for something you're going to say. It's not really natural to speak out an essay type piece of work. So I began with that. But when I became comfortable with that, I challenged myself to move from a full script to bullet points. And by that, I mean just one page, a list of key points, just to keep me on track and to keep me focused. And I made that transition over the process of several years, but crucially, in the early days at least, I always had a full script ready to go, so that if I lost track or if I wasn't able to do it just from bullet points, I could step back and use the full script as a fallback. And then over time, the bullet points slowly became unnecessary. And so at that point, I began to experiment with just giving chunks of the lecture at least without any support at all, until eventually I gave the lecture without any aids of any kind. But crucially, again, for the time of transition from one approach to another, I always had the bullet points ready just in case I needed them as a fallback. And so that's how I progressed at least to a place where I could give a lecture without any support, and I hope you find these tips helpful.